We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
In this topsy-turvy world, it seems that spending a few $1 trillion here and there apparently costs nothing whatsoever. Zero, at least according to President Joe Biden. Top this off with a spirited defense from White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki. And what we have is a recipe for debt. Just how can the administration claim that borrowing money and spending it cost the taxpayer nothing at all? Well, to help us answer that paradox, we're joined by author and economics guru, Mr. Andrew Moran. Welcome aboard, Andrew.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me, Joe Biden tweets that the $3.5 trillion human infrastructure plan will cost precisely $0. Have I gone mad, or is he right?
It's complete poppycock. I mean, it's just complete nonsense. And obviously, he didn't write that tweet. Someone of his communications said it, but then he said it in a speech to the White House. So obviously, he has no clue what he's talking about. But let's dissect this for a second. Let's say he's right. Let's say that he's going to get all the money he wants when it comes to the $3.5 trillion. He's going to raise all this revenue from all these different streams. That's still taxing the public. That's still charging the public for all these supposed public goods. So it's not free. It's not him just giving all this wealth away. It's confiscating wealth from the public. Now, will he get $3.5 trillion? Probably not. From the estimates I've seen, both from the left and the right think tanks, the most conservative one I saw is that he's going to get $2.3 trillion, not the $3.5 trillion. So obviously there's going to be a massive deficit occurring with that spending bill. And the Congressional Budget Office, they already say that the infrastructure bill is going to add $300 billion to the deficit. So all these spending plans he has, it's not going to be paid for. It's all going to cost taxpayers money, add to the growing debt.
Well, let's speak about those taxpayers for a moment, because Joe Biden has said that with his tax rises, that it's not going to impact anybody who earns less than $400,000 a year, or no household that earns less than $400,000 a year. So obviously a lot of people are thinking, well, maybe that's them. Maybe they're not going to be impacted by these tax rises. However, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki was defending the president's position, something that she seems to have to do more and more often nowadays, saying that it was absurd that the wealthy company owners would pass on the cost to consumers. Absurd. Now, am I living in bizarro world? Because I thought passing on costs to consumers was standard practice and has been since time immemorial.
Yeah, I mean, when I hear these opinions or these comments, it helps. I can't help but think of Murray Rothbard when he wrote in his book Anatomy of the State. He said that it's no crime to be ignorant of economics, but it's irresponsible to have a loud and vociferous opinion on economic subjects. I mean, this is Econ 101. When you have corporations, they pass the cost on to everything onto consumers. Now, they have to be competitive, of course, but when it comes to corporate tax rates, labor costs, raw material prices, everything gets passed on to the consumers. Just this week, Nike, Costco, they said that with the congestion going on the shipments and rising inflation prices, their customers are going to pay more for their goods. So this is just basic economics. What's going on at the White House? I mean, did Paul Krugman join the White House economic team or something?
Now, I do hate to continue with this litany of apparent economic errors, but what's the latest word on inflation from the Fed? And how could the White House have not seen this coming?
Yeah, this is perhaps my favorite economic story of 2021, because at the start of the year, they went everyone from saying there's not going to be any inflation. What are you talking about? You have no clue. You're just one of those crazy Austrian crackpots. And now it's saying, oh yeah, inflation's here. It's hot. It's going to stay here for longer. But don't worry, one day it will be transitory. So Fed Chair Jerome Powell, he spoke at the Senate Banking Committee on September 28th, and he was talking about, yeah, well, inflation is hot. It's going to be here longer. It's longer than we anticipated. How they got it wrong, I don't know how they could possibly see it. Liberty Nation's been writing about this since the early days of the pandemic when they passed that CARES Act, how all this new money would funnel into the economy and create massive price inflation. And then, of course, you have the economy reopening, so everyone's demanding everything at the same time. That was seen a long time ago. So I don't know if it's ignorance or ineptitude, whatever it is, but they really dropped the ball on this one.
Give me your analysis here, Andrew, please. How is it that we seem to be sinking into fiscal disaster? The economic iceberg dead ahead, and the captain of the Titanic, he just can't seem to steer away. Now, if I were a conspiracist, I'd have to conclude that this debacle, this financial economic debacle, was somewhat intentional. or they're incompetent. How do you see it, intent or incompetence?
I think it's a bit of both. America's finances have been on the downward since the Reagan years, or perhaps even one Jimmy Carter. The government spends more than it takes in. It may generate massive amounts of revenue, which it does, but it has a massive spending problem because politicians, they've mastered the art of kicking the can down the road. Every time they spend, they're thinking to the next election cycle. They don't want to make the tough choices. They don't want to make any sacrifices because they're afraid they're going to lose a certain percentage of the voting public, and their only solution to everything is to just to tax more. And of course, that's not a long-term sustainable path to take. I mean, you could tax Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Jim Rogers 100%. But that's only to keep the walls of Congress, or the lights of Congress, on for I think 6 months, and then you take all their money, and then what? There's nothing else what else are you going to take from? The middle class is already being squeezed. The low income, they don't pay much taxes, so you have to take from them, and then of course you have the most hideous tax of all, the inflation, because every new spending that a politician approved, that's going to be an inflation tax in future because they have no way to pay for it. Everything is deficit financed. Everything is done either by taxing, borrowing, or printing, and that's the moniker now of Washington.
Now, final question for you, Andrew, and I can't let you go without discussing toilet paper. Now,
That's my specialty.
It really is. Will Americans be forced to invest in bidets in the very near future, or is it all just scaremongering prompted by panic buying?
Yeah, it's those bidet special interest groups. They lobby on Washington. It's been all these
Big bidet.
But I was writing about this the other day, talking about there's a lot of the big I think it was Costco. They're talking about they're already limiting toilet paper sales. So it's giving the impression that the consumer marketplace, they're bracing for shortages, but there are other shortages too. They're warning about paper towel shortages. Nike's warning about apparel shortages. So it's all adding up. Will it be a Mad Max situation as it was in March 2020? I don't know. For instance, there's a saying among investors that if it hits CNBC or the Wall Street Journal, it's already too late. So when CNBC, when they're starting to report on this toilet paper shortage, it gives me an idea that it's not going to be as bad as they say, because last year nobody saw it coming. Nobody saw this toilet paper shortage coming. CNBC wasn't talking about it, and then it just happened out of nowhere. And then a few months later, CNBC was saying another toilet paper shortage is coming. It never did. So I think it's just a wait and see approach. In the meantime, get your bidet installed, stock up on your toilet paper, or use, as I did at March 2020, use some Kleenex.
Andrew Moran, thank you ever so much. Coming up soon on the show, we'll be asking whether SCOTUS can win, or is it doomed to be the whipping boy of the left and the right? But next up, we're casting a light on what happens down Mexico way as the border appears to have just plain disappeared. You're listening to Liberty Nation Radio, heard across the Radio America network from our flagship station in the nation's capital, WWRC in Washington, D.C. And this week, we offer a special thank you to those of you listening on KBKW 103.5 FM, the talk of Grays Harbor, Washington. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides. Who are we? We are Americans that believe in liberty. We are a project of the nonprofit One Generation Away. We are patriots who apply the founding principles to the issues of today.
And they keep moving the goalposts on us.
We are educators and commentators who love America and the Constitution. Who are we? We are Liberty Nation.